Streaming live, this is News Nation Now.
Welcome into the News Nation Now studio. I am Aaron Nolan, joined with meteorologist Gerard Jabali. We are tracking Delta as it is quickly heading towards the Louisiana coast. Very quickly, want to talk about what the governor is saying there in Louisiana, calling this a time to evacuate if you can. And if you're not in a situation where you have evacuated, you probably need to stay put. Looking at some of our reporters in that area, Delta, again, a Category 2 storm. It's moving at an interesting pace. And Gerard, I guess I need to quit trying to forecast here. You tell us exactly what this storm is doing.
Thanks, Aaron. We've recently gotten an update not too long ago. Delta was a Category 3 earlier this morning, and now it has been downgraded to a Category 2. Winds sustained 105 miles per hour. It was certainly much more impressive looking yesterday. Now we do not have a clearly defined eye. Maybe overall we're seeing some of those thunderstorms around the center kind of falling apart. You can see that here on the satellite imagery. Overall, the pace of the storm has been moving pretty decently. Now it's moving north-northeast at around 14 miles per hour. And at 1 p.m. Central Time, we got an update that showed that the center was around 65 miles south of Cameron, Louisiana. Cameron, Louisiana was in the direct crosshairs of Laura just about 6 weeks ago. And now here we are getting new hurricane conditions again, so another storm. One issue that we can talk about is radar coverage. We can see it very clearly on the radar out of Houston, but the Lake Charles radar was completely obliterated by Hurricane Laura. So we do not have the clearest picture on radar of the storm, but what you can make out is that eye wall just offshore. Plenty of rain falling across coastal portions of eastern Texas and southwestern Louisiana. Flash flood warnings ongoing at this hour as well. With all that torrential rainfall, they're expecting upwards of a foot of rainfall in some spots as they're not even hardly drying out from Laura. So Delta continuing to now move ashore. It has not made landfall yet. It will likely do so here in the next couple of hours to around maybe 3 hours from now. Here's the official track from the Hurricane Center. As it moves ashore, likely as a Category 2 hurricane, and then weakening down to a tropical storm by Saturday morning with winds of only 60 miles per hour. Then further weakening over Mississippi to a depression, and then the remnants are going to just continue off to the north and east through the weekend, bringing rainfall and some breezy conditions, but also a tornado threat as it moves inland, as hurricanes often will do that. So as you talked about, Aaron, time to evacuate, well, it was really beginning some time ago, but now you're starting to run out of time if you haven't done so yet. But hurricane conditions are likely going to be experienced here very shortly along the southern coast of Louisiana. Hurricane warnings in effect from Beaumont to Lake Charles to Lafayette and all the way up. So plenty of things happening. I'll quickly show some of the winds that are expected with this system. Future wind gusts across Louisiana, easily over hurricane force. Many areas could see wind gusts 90 to 100 miles per hour, and then weakening with the wind field, which, by the way, is very large, but gradual weakening as we move into the next several days. Just taking a look, the Hurricane Center did report that the hurricane force winds were about 70 miles in width all along that eye wall, and then the tropical storm force winds is what's really impressive here, stretching some 300 miles in width. So many folks will feel hurricane force winds even though they may be over 100 miles away from the center. I'm sorry, I said that wrong. Tropical storm force winds, even though they're 100 miles away from the center. Make sure I have that right. So very big wind field with this storm, and it could bring some impacts all the way over to Galveston and even all the way as far east as New Orleans.
We are on Facebook Live right now taking a look at what is happening as we continue to track Hurricane Delta. If you have any questions for Gerard, be sure to chime in there on Facebook. Make sure you follow News Nation Now on Facebook. We're going to continue to look at what is happening. John Bell Edwards, the governor of Louisiana, has been active here. A reporter there in Louisiana, Jonah Gilmore, who works for our station there in Louisiana, saying that they transported more than 500 evacuees to a shelter. As you look at this storm, Gerard, you mentioned that the eye wall you can't see right now. Does that change anything of the impressiveness of the storm?
Visually, yes. I mean, normally when you see that very well-defined eye, that certainly has your attention a little bit more. But as far as the overall impacts of this storm, Very little, to be honest with you. Category 3 with a well-defined eye could do just about the same amount of damage and have the same impacts as what we're seeing here with this storm, even though it is weakened. So very important to note that even though it was downgraded to a Category 2, we're still going to see almost identical impacts, perhaps a little less on the wind, but the storm surge is still going to be a problem. The flooding rain is still going to be just the same amount of a problem. Everything else is pretty much equal, but the overall strength of the winds at the very peak, the very eye of that system, around the eye wall, that may have dropped off a little bit, but overall that's not going to be the major impact. So again, here's the storm surge forecast, pretty big coming from that Q-risk model, but let's go to the National Hurricane Center's official forecast, and you'll see that the overall width of how much storm surge that could be seen in the area, reaching all the way across into Texas and then all the way feeling into Mobile, Alabama. Now the peak of the storm surge is going to be felt likely along some of those same locations that had to deal with impressive storm surge of 17 feet. New Liberia, along the south central coast of Louisiana, we're hoping all those communities, thankfully this is not a highly populated area, but still twice in one season is pretty impressive.
Do you know which parish that it will hit?
Well, the direct parish is still going to be interesting.
Well,
it could
I asked
hit
that
Cameron
because
Parish.
Okay, I'm asking that because I'm looking right now at outages, power outages for Louisiana.
Right.
Right now, not many, but the parishes to the north of Cameron Parish do have more outages than Cameron Parish. But if that's where that is, that of course is that Lake Charles area.
Certainly Lake Charles, and right now the center of circulation is pretty much due south of Cameron. If it continues to take a north track or north-northeast track, it's likely going to make landfall just to the east of Cameron, Louisiana, which is Cameron Parish. Same parish that was made landfall, of course, by Hurricane Laura.
I want to bring in some questions real quick for you, Gerard. Angel is asking if Delta will hit Arkansas. I think you showed a little bit of that track as it continues to move north and east.
Yeah, there will be some impacts felt in Arkansas. Certainly not the wind, but they will see some rainfall. That was the next thing I was going to show. So here's some of that rainfall. The wind will likely be much weaker. We're talking maybe 50, at most 60 mile per hour wind gusts that we're going to be seeing. But the rainfall, south and southeastern Arkansas, definitely going to feel the impacts of the rain, possibly a tornado threat, but usually that's on the right side or eastern side of the storm. So 8 to 12 inches of rain a possibility across Louisiana, but as you get closer to Arkansas, 4 to 6 inches in the far southeastern extremes, and then a lot of that rainfall is going to spread with the storm as it becomes just sort of a remnant system, and dropping 2 to perhaps 3 inches of rainfall across Tennessee, Kentucky, all the way up towards the eastern seaboard. They could even see rain from this system as far north as New York City.
So it will hang around for quite a while as it continues to make its track across the United States. I want to read a few more comments as we are right now on the News Nation Now Facebook page. Rebecca says linemen from Ohio are already in Kentucky driving down. Those are things that obviously encourage us, and look, it's just people being people, standing there and doing what they can to help whenever this happens. I've got some other comments of other people who are ready and waiting to help. Sarah is an essential worker. She's been working, trying to help out as well. This is exactly in this storm, in these situations, Gerard, you've been talking about it for quite some time, that it was coming. You've been prepared, and it's great to see some essential workers prepared as well to help those who may be affected here, honestly, in the next few hours.
Yeah, certainly, and you know, a lot of these folks have been pre-staging, pre-planning even before hurricane season started, and now, of course, they have to pull the trigger. The unfortunate thing is, here they are, Louisiana about to deal with its 4th named landfall of the season, which is pretty incredible. One of those moving over the same area, so that's unfortunate, and I know these people are very weary. They have been working tirelessly to try to just keep up with what Laura has brought, and now here they are again. So my heart goes out to them. That is not an easy situation just to deal with one major landfalling hurricane and now another one coming in only 6 weeks later, where some places may have only gotten power restored in the last week or two and could have it knocked out again for another stretch of maybe weeks. So that is the big story with this system. It's not just that this is still a significant storm system at one point, a major hurricane, but now it's moving over the exact same location where, Aaron, you saw the video, the roofs of everyone's homes just covered in blue tarps. They have not even had a chance to take a breath and really clean up from the last one hardly, and it's being hit again.
Let's talk historical significance for a moment before we get to one final forecast as we look at landfall. Historically speaking, we have rolled over to the Greek alphabet. You have talked extensively about that on News Nation, which airs on WGN America on weekends. But you've also talked about how significant it is by the number of storms that have made landfall.
Without a doubt. So there's the list of storms that we have seen. Delta reaching Category 4 strength at one time. Now we're up to that point, the furthest we've ever gone in the Greek alphabet, and we've only gone in the Greek alphabet twice. The last time was in 2005. In 2005, they made it to Zeta. So 2 more storms that get named, and we're tying them. I have a good feeling that we will easily get to that point and likely even surpass that, since we still have plenty of time left in the season. But let's talk a little bit of historical significance about the number of storms that has made landfall. So here's the 2020 season with landfalling storms, not including Delta. And 9 of them right there. Faye, Isaias, Bertha along the East Coast, the Gulf Coast, Sally, Marco, Cristobal, Laura, Beta, and Hannah. And unfortunately, Louisiana has been hit 3 times already, and here comes their 4th storm, still a significant hurricane. And all of these storms, it's just been incredible. So now we're getting up to 10 with Delta as it makes landfall likely just there in Cameron Parish. And that will put us at 10 storms all time. We've never had more named storms making landfall in recorded history, which goes back to 1851. So we were tied with 1916, but in the next couple of hours, we're going to break that record. We'll be up to 10, and this will definitely put 2020 well into the record books, how it's been. And one other note I'd like to add to this is kind of something interesting. Initially, when we were seeing Hurricane Delta's formation and as it headed towards Cancun, a lot of people were making some similarity references to Hurricane Wilma back in 2005. We keep going back to 2005 since it was such a benchmark season. Wilma and Delta had very similar tracks at first. As you notice, there's Wilma as it developed right off of the coast of Jamaica. Delta did the same thing. They both exploded in intensity very rapidly and beelined for Cancun. And then you see the divergence. Huge change in track, Delta aiming for Louisiana, and then Wilma made its way over to South Florida. Just goes to show you that you can have 2 storms that can look almost identical, form in the same place, do the same thing, look like it's going the same place, but you cannot forecast based upon an old storm. They're totally unique. They're nowhere near exactly the same. So they will not always follow those tracks, and that's why it's important. You don't want to go by what happened before with these as a way to try to prepare for one that may be happening. You cannot count on that to occur. So something interesting to talk about.
All right, Gerard, let's very quickly see where we're at right now, and again, talk about landfall. That is the important thing, as we know that this storm right now is causing problems there in Louisiana, but once it makes landfall, things obviously are going to change once again.
Yeah, it's going to step up right now. They're getting impacts, they're getting rain, they're getting tropical storm force winds, but we'll be seeing landfall here soon enough. The radar showing that eye wall just offshore. They're going to start, well, there you can see it's just now probably starting to be getting hurricane force winds just on the south coast of Louisiana. So we may see landfall very shortly here. Landfall is where the very center of the eye moves onshore, and then we will see it tracing across Louisiana with a drop in strength, but still high impacts with heavy rain, the tornado threat, but the winds will start to die down. That storm surge still the main issue here, as we're seeing 8 feet or higher of storm surge. I'm going to go back to that really quickly, Aaron, and you get the idea. Just the fact that most of Louisiana is such a wetland, the storm surge can really inundate very far inland. Those creeks, those bayous, all of that has an effect, or at least gets affected by storm surge. So we can see storm surge reaching very far inland in Louisiana.
I want to caution people, and I'd like for you to chime in here, and I'm guilty of this right now. I'm a big guy on social media. I follow what's happening around, and right now, Hurricane Delta is not on my what's happening. It's not trending, but I want to caution people that doesn't mean that this thing has lessened in intensity, and it's not an important thing that you should pay attention to throughout the afternoon. 2
things, Aaron. One, the fatigue, the overall number of storms we've had this year. People are tired of them. I don't blame them. It's just like anything else. When you hear it too much, you're ready to kind of give up on it. No, that is one of those things as well. And the second thing is that we saw it just trend down a little bit in the strength. Not enough to cause major differences in potential to cause lives to be threatened or property damage. So those two things alone are probably the reason why we may not hearing it on the airwaves as much as we probably should. Had this been the first storm of the season, I'm sure it would be talked about a whole lot more. And again, it becoming a major hurricane, even though it gets that label as a major hurricane, which it was at one time, this small drop in strength really doesn't change much for 95% of the folks in the path of this storm. That's the points that we have to hit home on this one.
All right, as you're on social media, make sure you follow Gerard, follow News Nation, whether it's Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. You're going to get that information. You can also follow our chief meteorologist, Albert Ramon. Gerard, I know that you're going to be following this. You're going to have as soon as this thing makes land and as soon as you know something else is happening, we'll probably be right back here on News Nation.
Absolutely. We got another update at 4 o'clock as well from the Hurricane Center, and by that time we may be seeing it starting to cross into land. So again, as we saw from around 2 o'clock onward, we were looking at landfall, and we'll be back, I think, at 4 o'clock to discuss that again. So we'll be here one more time, and then of course News Nation starting at 7 o'clock tonight. Myself and Chief Meteorologist Albert Ramon will be on tracking the exact conditions going on with Delta, and I believe we'll have some live reports from there as well.
Yeah, without a doubt, I would urge you again to download our app. We say this every time. This time it's for safety for you guys at home who are in Louisiana, who are in the path of Hurricane Delta. So download the News Nation Now app and also follow us 7 o'clock tonight on WGN America. That's Central Time. We're across America, so make sure you follow her there as well. Gerard, thank you, man. I know you got a busy afternoon. I appreciate you taking the time here. All right, that's all the time we have here on News Nation Now. Have a good afternoon.